All right, Chuck. The 53-man roster has been finalized after a couple of moves to put Will Howard and Dante Kent on the injured reserve and bringing back Chuck Clark and Max Sharping. We now have our 53 that's more than likely going to be suited up. Well, 47 plus 53 going to be suited up for the game this weekend versus the Jets. Were there any surprises on your end?
Yeah, there was no surprises because everything that the organization talked about going into training camp, coming out of it, they believed in their roster. There was no moves from the outside being made. So that just lets you know how comfortable that the organization was building the roster and how much they believe going into it.
Yeah. And by the looks of it, by and large, the people that he brought back on practice squad were the same guys they had in camp. And to me, that's a sign that the team thinks that they had a very strong camp. I put this tweet out earlier, that a sign that a team that thinks they had a strong camp is when the practice squad is damn near everybody that you just released. They didn't need to go look too far to bring anybody back, Chuck. Wouldn't you agree with that assessment?
No, I 100% agree with that. And that just lets you know how strong of a camp those young guys had, because either way, it was, from a roster perspective, and you start looking at the pecking order, that lets you know that Coach Tomlin really believed in, hey, I have the guys in the room. I told y'all that prior to camp. And now that these moves are made in this particular manner, he can still stand in front of that room and say, I told you so. Let's go out there now and get this work done.
Yeah, initially when Max Sharping got released, I was a little bit surprised at that because I thought he had a good camp and Ryan McCullum hadn't really practiced up to that point. If I had to give one surprise on the O-line, I think it was Calvin Anderson, just because he hadn't practiced or played in any of the preseason games, but he must have shown enough in the offseason workouts beforehand. And they did bring Dylan Cook and Stephen Jones back to practice squad. Again, signifying that they had good camps as well. So by and large, I don't think there were any surprises, but when you look at this roster, we don't have, I think, what you would call name recognition. We have some stars, and the top 100 did recognize them. TJ Watt, of course, being the highest ranked of them all at 11th. They did give us some respect. They got Cam at 83, Patrick Queen at 75, and Jalen at 66. Did the NFL, and I guess this is voted on by our peers or some voters out there, did they get it right? Or do you think there's anybody else on our team that deserves to be mentioned in the top 100 of the NFL?
No, I think they got it right. I mean, the Steelers, even the player, they shouldn't expect more on there only because of the type of season that you had. If you went out and dominated the league, then yeah, you would go out there and have more people on this particular list. Now, could they have been higher? Yeah, that's debatable. But again, we didn't create the list. Someone else did. So now this just adds fuel to the fire when you have Mike Tomlin walking in saying, TJ, here's what they think about you. So now you're throwing that little nugget out there to now light that fire underneath him to have a great season.
Yeah, but I gotta say, DK's not on there. I don't see DK in the top 100. And I think he's definitely has an argument to be one of the top 100 players. He's definitely, I think, a top 10 wide receiver. Some could argue a top 5 to 7 wide receiver when he's really on. And I gotta think a Hall of Famer and arguably one of the better quarterbacks to play this game in Aaron Rodgers. I know he probably doesn't care about this list at all, but it is slightly disrespectful not to have somebody who a lot of folks consider a GOAT candidate not to be mentioned in the top 100, but he didn't have the greatest season, coming off a bad season in New York, so to speak. So I get what they're saying with this list, but those are my only two who I think would make an argument, or who could have an argument about making that top 100.
But we've been around Mike Tomlin enough that he behind the scenes, I promise you that he's now throwing that little nugget out to those guys. Hey, you were once the best. Now you don't even make the list. What you going to do about it?
Exactly. Now, I got to say, when it comes to drafting fantasy teams, there weren't a lot of Steelers being picked, and that's to be expected. We're not going into the season as one of the highly vaunted offenses, but I think by season's end, we might have some guys that could make your argument that they are top 10 players. But we also, in Steeler City headlines, one of our good and dear friends, Mr. Jerome Bettis, got honored as we renamed our youth mentoring program the Jerome Bettis Leadership Award. As somebody who I know appreciates stuff like this, Charlie, what does this mean to you?
Yeah, they got it right for sure. There's no question about it. And when you talk about a person who you want now to carry that leadership torch on, who lived by it and walked that walk, it is Jerome Bettis. This was a guy that I looked up to when I first came into the league, because he was from Detroit. Obviously, my first couple of years was in Detroit. And watching him and then winning Walter Payton Man of the Year, having the opportunity to be his locker mate, watching how he goes about his day-to-day, that is a person that you want to emulate. Steelers got it right on this, and I'm super proud of Jerome because he's still continuing to carry that torch all of these years later. He's been now retired 20 years and now continue to still doing a lot of the things off the field, man. It's just an honor to know him.
Right. And this award is for the program where they recognize a local high school football players who go above and beyond to mentor their teammates on and off the field. And I got to say, Jerome Bettis is the epitome of that. As a rookie coming in, I knew very well who Jerome Bettis was. I knew the type of team I was coming to. I knew his leadership. And as a rookie, I was a little intimidated coming in. I was like, I got to block for this guy, because if I don't block, if I half-ass it, so to speak, to go into a block, Jerome Bettis is going to run me over, The bus is, I'm going to have some tracks on my back from the bus, And so Jerome always did a good job of helping us young linemen, let us know that he had our backs. And it was a pleasure. One of my greatest memories, I started the game, his last 100-yard game in Chicago, when we saw that epic run where he's running over Lance Briggs and Brian Urlacher on his way to the end zone. You hear Mike Logan saying he had his snow tires on. So it was an honor to block for him, and it's only right that the Steelers honor Jerome Bettis with this type of award.
They do. And I think when you look back on all the things that he still continues to do, he's, yes, he has a great foundation with the Bus Stop Here's Foundation, but he supports everybody else. And that's one thing that he's always going to show up. And when he puts his word to it and he shows up, it just makes you appreciate it. And that's just something that I could speak to personally because of the support that he continues to show Latasha and I with Best of the Batch Foundation. He's always come back to be a part of it. So I just thank Jerome, thank his wife Tramika for really just going out there and believing in what we're doing, because he has set the bar so high and everybody wants to emulate that.